I never imagined I would be telling this story 15 years later. As a structural engineer, I deal with calculations and certainty every day. That is why, when my wife Amanda announced she was 5 weeks pregnant after I had been in Japan for 8 weeks on a work project, I immediately knew something was wrong. The math simply did not add up. She refused my request for a paternity test, saying I was insulting her, so I filed for divorce. Now, 15 years later, she is still harassing me, claiming I abandoned her and our daughter, and recently they approached my 9-year-old son at his school. Before I tell you how this nightmare has followed me for 15 years, let me know where you are watching from and hit subscribe if you have ever had to make a difficult decision to protect your peace. My name is Quincy, and at the time this all began, I was a 34-year-old structural engineer specializing in earthquake-resistant building designs. I met Amanda during our senior year of college at a mutual friend's birthday party. She was studying business administration and had a vibrant, outgoing personality that drew people to her. I was immediately attracted to her confidence and the way she commanded attention in any room. We dated for 3 years before getting married at 25. The first few years of our marriage were genuinely happy. We bought a modest starter home in Seattle, adopted a golden retriever named Charlie, and spent weekends hiking the nearby mountains or exploring local farmers markets. Amanda worked in marketing for a retail company, and I was establishing myself at a respected engineering firm. The first signs of trouble appeared subtly. Amanda became increasingly possessive whenever I needed to work late on projects. She would call multiple times during meetings, text constantly asking when I would be home, and occasionally show up at my office unannounced, claiming she just wanted to surprise me, but clearly checking to see if I was actually working. Her jealousy escalated when I began collaborating with female colleagues. She would question me about their marital status, appearance, and the nature of our interactions. At company events, Amanda would barely leave my side, inserting herself into professional conversations and making uncomfortable comments about protecting what is hers. I tried addressing these concerns through open communication and even suggested couples counseling, but Amanda dismissed the idea, saying I was trying to blame her for caring too much. Instead of confronting the real issues, I began adjusting my behavior to avoid triggering her jealousy, declining after-work gatherings, and limiting my professional networking. As my career advanced, I received an opportunity that would become a significant turning point in our marriage. My firm selected me to oversee a major project in Tokyo, Japan, designing reinforcement strategies for several high-rise buildings in a seismically active zone. The assignment would last 2 months and could establish my international reputation in the field. When I shared the news with Amanda, her reaction was immediate and severe. 2 months. Are you serious? You are choosing your career over our marriage, she accused, tears streaming down her face. What am I supposed to do alone for 2 months? How do I know what you will be doing over there? I explained the professional significance of the opportunity, how it would benefit our future, and promised to call daily. None of it mattered. The week before my departure was filled with tearful arguments, accusations of abandonment, and even threats that our marriage might not survive this. The morning I left for the airport, Amanda refused to drive me, saying she was not going to support this decision. My last image of her was in our bedroom doorway, arms crossed, as I pulled my suitcase toward the waiting taxi. Communication during my time in Japan was strained. The 13-hour time difference meant my mornings were her evenings, and vice versa. I would call before she went to bed, but our conversations grew increasingly brief. Amanda complained about being left alone, mentioned friends I did not recognize coming over to keep her company, and showed little interest in my work or experiences in Tokyo. After 6 weeks, my part of the project was progressing ahead of schedule. The local team was exceeding expectations, and we completed the critical structural assessments faster than anticipated. My supervisor agreed I could return home 2 weeks early, transferring the final phase to the resident team. I decided to surprise Amanda, hoping the early reunion would help repair our strained relationship. During the 14-hour flight home, I planned a second honeymoon to Maui, researched couples workshops in our area, and drafted an email to my boss requesting a more balanced work schedule upon my return. I was determined to make things right. I arrived home mid-afternoon on a Tuesday, exhausted from travel but excited to see Amanda. The first thing I noticed were unfamiliar men's shoes by our front door, significantly larger than mine. In the bathroom, I found a bottle of cologne I had never seen before. The house was in disarray with wine bottles on the coffee table and takeout containers from restaurants. Amanda had always claimed to dislike. When Amanda walked in from the bedroom and saw me standing in our living room, her face registered shock before quickly shifting to forced enthusiasm. "Quincy, what are you doing home? I thought you had 2 more weeks," she exclaimed, giving me a stiff hug that felt more like a formality than a genuine greeting. "I finished early and wanted to surprise you," I explained, already feeling a knot forming in my stomach. That evening, Amanda insisted on making dinner, something she rarely did even before I left. As we sat down to eat, she reached across the table, took my hand, and announced with a smile, "I have a surprise too. I took a pregnancy test this morning. We are going to have a baby. I am 5 weeks along." In that moment, everything slowed down. 5 weeks pregnant. I had been gone for 8 weeks. The math was impossible. I carefully maintained my expression while my mind raced. 5 weeks. "Are you sure about the timing?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Yes, the home test was positive, and I called my doctor this morning," she said. "Based on my last period, I am about 5 weeks along," Amanda replied, watching my reaction closely. "That is interesting," I said slowly, "because I have been in Japan for 8 weeks now." Amanda's face flickered, then hardened. "No, it has not been that long. You are confused from the jet lag. You left 6 weeks ago at most." I reached for my carry-on bag and removed my passport, opening it to show the entry stamp dated exactly 8 weeks prior. "I left on March 3rd. Today is April 28th. That is 8 weeks. Her strategy shifted immediately. "Well, the doctor might have miscalculated. You know those early estimates are not exact. Maybe I am further along than they thought." While Amanda showered that evening, I did something I had never done before. I checked her phone. There were dozens of messages with someone named Jake, filled with intimate exchanges, plans to meet, and explicit content. I found hotel reservations, charges for meals at expensive restaurants, and movie tickets for 2 purchased during my absence. When she emerged from the bathroom, I calmly laid out the evidence. "I know about Jake," I said, "and I know this baby cannot possibly be mine. I would like you to take a paternity test." Her reaction was explosive. "How dare you insult me like this? After everything I have done for you, you go through my private messages and then accuse me of cheating. What kind of man does that?" "The kind who has been in another country during the conception of a child. He is suddenly responsible for," I replied, maintaining my rhetoric composure. Amanda grabbed her phone and immediately called her parents, her voice transforming into sobs as she told them I was being emotionally abusive and rejecting his baby. Within an hour, her parents arrived at our house, her father threatening me with various consequences if I did not man up and take responsibility. The next morning, I contacted my college friend Richard Dawson, who had become a family law attorney. He advised me to document everything from the timeline of my trip to the evidence of Amanda's affair and to prepare for a difficult divorce process. That afternoon, Amanda posted a sonogram image on social media with the caption, "Quincy and I are overjoyed to announce we are expecting. Our little miracle is due in December, friends." And family immediately began commenting with congratulations, while I sat in stunned silence watching the performance unfold. When I presented Amanda with divorce papers 3 days later, her vindictive side emerged fully. "I will make sure everyone knows what kind of man abandons his pregnant wife," she hissed. "Your reputation will be destroyed." I moved into a hotel that night, my phone buzzing constantly with confused and accusatory messages from friends and family who had heard Amanda's version of events, that I was having a mental breakdown after my trip and abandoning her during pregnancy. The divorce proceedings dragged on for 6 months, complicated by Amanda's pregnancy and her relentless campaign to paint me as the villain. She delayed the court-ordered paternity test 3 times, claiming health concerns, scheduling conflicts, and eventually emotional distress. When the results finally came through, they confirmed what I already knew: I was not the father of Amanda's baby. Despite this scientific evidence, Amanda maintained her public narrative, telling anyone who would listen that the test was somehow flawed and that I had abandoned my responsibilities. After the birth of her daughter, whom she named Lily, Amanda ramped up her harassment. She began calling my workplace sometimes multiple times a day, until my manager had to implement a special protocol for screening calls. She filed baseless complaints with my professional licensing board, forcing me to hire an attorney to defend my credentials. On social media, slanderous posts about me would appear and disappear before legal action could be taken. Friends would forward me screenshots of horrible accusations, from financial fraud to emotional abuse, all carefully worded to avoid direct defamation while clearly identifying me. After a particularly aggressive campaign cost me a promotion opportunity, I decided to relocate to Portland for a fresh start. I accepted a position with a well-respected firm, bought a condominium in a secure building, and changed my phone number. For the first time in months, I felt I could breathe again. The peace lasted exactly 3 weeks before a thick envelope arrived at my new address, containing photographs of Lily and a letter from Amanda, detailing how I had broken this innocent child's heart by abandoning her. Somehow, Amanda had tracked down my new location, despite my careful efforts to keep it private. 5 years after the divorce, while attending a professional conference in Chicago, I met Elaine, an architect specializing in sustainable design. Our professional connection evolved into friendship and eventually romance. Before our relationship became serious, I shared the full story of my past, with her bracing myself for her to walk away once she understood the complications that came with dating me. Instead, Elaine listened attentively, asked thoughtful questions, and ultimately said, "That sounds incredibly difficult, but it says nothing about who you are as a person. It says everything about who Amanda is." With Elaine's support, I developed better strategies for managing the occasional intrusions from Amanda. When we married 2 years later, we implemented strict privacy measures, keeping our ceremony location secret until the day itself, and hiring security to ensure no uninvited guests could enter. The birth of our son Michael brought a joy and fulfillment I had begun to think might never be part of my life. Elaine and I created a warm, stable home focused on building positive family memories and supporting Michael's natural curiosity and energy. Unfortunately, news of my new family somehow reached Amanda, triggering a fresh wave of harassment. She created fake social media accounts to contact my colleagues and new friends in Portland, telling them I had another family I abandoned, and warning them about my pattern of behavior. More disturbing was her decision to involve Lily, now a teenager, in the harassment. I began receiving heartbreaking messages from a girl I had never met, calling me dad and asking why I had abandoned her, stating she just wanted to know her father. The messages were clearly orchestrated by Amanda, often using identical phrasing to her own messages, but knowing a child was being manipulated this way was devastating. Each time the harassment escalated, I would pursue legal remedies, obtaining temporary restraining orders that provided brief periods of relief before Amanda found new methods of contact or used proxy accounts to continue the campaign. The emotional toll was significant despite my otherwise fulfilling family life. Elaine and I were careful to shield Michael from the situation, but maintaining this protection required constant vigilance. We developed protocols for school pickup, carefully monitored our social media presence, and maintained close relationships with Michael's teachers, so they would be aware of unauthorized contact attempts. We experienced periodic stretches of peace, sometimes lasting months before something would trigger a new campaign, often coinciding with family milestones like anniversaries or Michael's birthdays, as if Amanda was determined to taint every happy moment. The final confrontation came shortly after Michael started 3rd grade at a new school, following my promotion to senior engineering consultant that required relocating to a different neighborhood in Portland. We had been careful, as always, keeping our new address off public records and instructing the school about authorized pickup individuals. I was in a client meeting when my phone began vibrating persistently with calls from Michael's school. When I finally excused myself to answer, the principal's voice was tense as she explained, there had been an incident during afternoon pickup. A woman claiming to be Michael's aunt had approached him on the playground accompanied by a teenage girl. Before the yard monitor could intervene, the teenager had knelt down to Michael's level and said, "I am your sister, Lily. Your dad abandoned us before I was born. He does not want you to know about us. My 9-year-old son had been confused and frightened, running to his teacher in tears. By the time the principal reached the playground, Amanda and Lily had already left, but not before Amanda handed Michael an envelope with photographs and a letter. I felt a protective rage unlike anything I had experienced before. This crossed every boundary, involving an innocent child who had nothing to do with events that occurred before he was born. I immediately called my attorney while driving to the school, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Michael was waiting in the counselor's office, his small face serious and confused. "Dad, a lady said she is my sister." "Do I have a sister I do not know about?" he asked as I knelt beside him. That evening, after consulting with a child psychologist over the phone, Elaine and I had an age-appropriate conversation with Michael, explaining that sometimes adults have complicated situations, and that the lady who approached him was confused about our family. We assured him he was safe, loved, and that he could always come to us with questions. The next day, I contacted a specialized family law attorney with extensive experience handling harassment cases. With her guidance, I filed for a comprehensive restraining order covering my entire family and hired a cybersecurity specialist to document and remove defamatory content. Amanda had spread across various platforms. We enrolled Michael in family therapy sessions to help him process what happened, and I scheduled a separate consultation to address my own unresolved trauma from the 15-year campaign of harassment. At the court hearing 2 weeks later, Amanda performed her usual routine of tears and victimhood, painting herself as a heartbroken mother, simply trying to unite siblings. The judge, however, was unmoved by the performance, particularly after reviewing the extensive documentation of harassment spanning 15 years. "Miss Wallace," the judge said firmly, using Amanda's maiden name, "she had readopted the evidence, shows a disturbing pattern of harassment manipulation and disregard for court orders. Most concerning is your recent decision to involve a minor child in what appears to be a vindictive campaign against Mr. Anderson. This court takes such actions very seriously." The judge issued a comprehensive restraining order prohibiting Amanda from contacting me, my wife, or my son through any means direct or indirect. Additionally, the judge ordered that both Amanda and Lily attend therapy with a stern warning that violation of the order would result in criminal charges and potentially jail time. 15 years is far too long for this behavior to continue, the judge concluded. It stops today. Walking out of that courtroom, I felt a weight lifting that I had carried for so long. I had almost forgotten what it felt like to be free of it. For the first time, there seemed to be real consequences that might finally end Amanda's campaign. In the 6 months since that hearing, we have experienced a peace I had stopped believing was possible. Michael has recovered from the incident with the resilience children often show, returning to his carefree enjoyment of soccer games, science projects, and video game sessions with friends. Elaine and I have worked to rebuild the sense of security that was temporarily shaken, installing additional home security measures, not out of fear, but as a practical precaution. More importantly, we have focused on creating new, positive family memories to overshadow the single frightening incident. The experience taught me valuable lessons about standing firm in my truth, despite enormous pressure to conform to someone else's narrative. For years, I questioned whether I should have just gone along with Amanda's lie to avoid the harassment and pain that followed. Now I understand that doing so would have meant sacrificing my integrity and building my life on a foundation of deception. I learned that choosing peace sometimes requires difficult, unpopular decisions. When I filed for divorce after Amanda's pregnancy announcement, many friends and family members criticized me for not working things out or giving the marriage another chance. Standing firm against that social pressure was one of the hardest things I have ever done, but it was absolutely the right choice. Most importantly, I discovered that truth eventually prevails even if the journey is longer and more painful than we expect. 15 years is a long time to have someone actively trying to destroy your reputation and peace, but maintaining my commitment to reality ultimately protected my ability to build a genuine, loving family. Have you ever had to stand your ground against ongoing harassment? Share your experience in the comments below. If you believe in protecting your peace at all costs, hit that like button to show support. Subscribe for more real-life stories of resilience, and share this video with someone who might need encouragement to stand firm in their truth. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, protecting your mental health is not selfish, it is necessary.